Hey everyone, how's it going? So we have our user schema. We're ready to start using it now. So what we're going to do is go back to register_routes.js, and the first thing we need to do is actually include it at the top so that we can use it. So what we'll do is underneath that body parser line, we'll just say const user, that's an uppercase U on user, equals require, and inside there we'll put a link to the schema file. So we can say what folder are we in right now? Okay, we're in the roots folder, so we need to say // and then go to the schemas folder, and then slash, and then user schema. So now we're able to use the user schema from this file. So what do we want to do with it? Well, inside this if statement, we know at this point that all the values are valid as far as we're concerned. So what we're going to do is just make sure that no user exists with this email or username. So we're going to write our first query, if you want to call it that. What we're going to do is say user. So we're accessing this user schema object that we have up here. So user dot, and then the way you do almost like a select query in MySQL is you use what are called find queries. So we're going to say find one, which basically means that it's going to look for one document in the collection. Now, documents are just how MongoDB refers to rows. So a document is essentially a row in a relational database table. So when we say we're finding a document, we're searching for one row or one entry into the table. So what do we want to look for? Well, we want to look for a user in this collection that has the email of this or the username of this, because remember, we want to make sure both of these two fields are unique. So what we'll do is in the parentheses right there, we'll just put some curly brackets, and then inside there is essentially where you put your where clause, or if that's what you want to call it. So the conditions that you want to look for. So of course, we want to look for someone with this username. So we could just do we could just say username equals, and then whatever the variable's called, it's just called username right there. So what this will do is it will go to the user table or collection and look for any row with the username of user. And now this username part right here matches what we've called it in the user schema. So it's going to go and look for someone with this username, okay? And that would work. That'd be good. All we'd need to do after this runs is check to see if it found anything. If it didn't, then fine. And then what we'd also need to do after that is do the same thing for the email. We'd need to then say like email like that or something like that. But we can do both in one, so we don't have to do two separate queries. What we can do is use an or condition, which checks if the username is equal to username or whether the email is equal to the email variable. So what I'm going to do is just take all of that for just a second. I'm going to cut it, so it's on my clipboard. And I'm going to put a new set of curly brackets in there, and I'll put it onto a new line like this. So I've pressed enter, and we're going to just say $ or, and I'll explain this in just a second. Just copy along with me for now. Put square brackets, so this is an array, and then I'm going to paste that in there, the username condition we just had, and I'll do one more, which is the same line again, but this is going to be for email, like this. Oh, if I can spell email right, that is. Email, and then it'll be the email variable. So that syntax doesn't really look very nice, I know, but just bear with me. What it means is it's going to execute this as a condition, just like the last example where we only had that. But what this means is it's going to check whether any of these are found. So the or right here is an or condition. So MongoDB has a bunch of these conditions that you can use, different operators. So this or operator just means it will look for any row which has this or that. And you can add more there if you wanted to. But basically, MongoDB has a bunch of operators like this that allow you to do a load of different behaviors. We've got equal to, we've got not equal to, we have exclusive ors, which means that when it checks this, only one of them can be true. But we won't get into those for now. But essentially, we specify an operator, and then what you do is in the square brackets like this, you just put all your conditions. So we have these two, which essentially means it's checking if the username equals username or if the email is equal to email. So great, that will essentially give us that user if that user exists. So any user which matches those conditions, it will give us. If there's more than one, it will give us just one of them. We don't care if there's more than one, we just care if any of these conditions have been met. So it doesn't matter to us if there's more than one. But anyway, So this stuff right here, this query returns a promise, which means that we have to use the .then.catch stuff that you've seen so far. So we would say like .then, like this, and in there we would have the function that we want to run once this is done. So we would have it like this, where it runs this callback. So in there I can just say console.log user like this. But it does mean that any code we run, we want to run after this, would need to be put inside this then block, because this code runs asynchronously, which means if I was to run some code outside of the then block like this, console.log hello. Oops, I've spelled hello wrong. I've actually said hello. So if I said console.log hello, this would run before it gets back. It would get to this line right here, run this, but immediately run to the next line and do that. And then once this is finished, however long it takes, if it takes 5 minutes, an hour, whatever, it would come back and do this only once it's done. So it would jump back to this afterwards, okay? I can show you how that works now. So what we have should work. So what I'm going to do is stop this and restart it, and let's just give it a try. So have I run that? No errors, great. Don't worry about that warning, we'll get rid of that shortly. But for now, it worked, it's connected to the database. Let's go ahead and try and sign in and see what we get. So I need to actually do this again. I'm going to refresh the page that way so I don't resubmit the form. Now I'll add some values in there. There, I put an email in there and a password. And let's see what we get. So we shouldn't see anything here, which we don't. So let's see what we get. So what's happened is we've, you can see we called this line and we immediately logged hello because we, remember I said this is asynchronous. So it immediately jumped to this line, but it hasn't actually finished this yet. It's still going on in the background, and it only comes to this line once it's done. So that's why you can see the null echoed there, because it's null because there was no user found, because we don't have any users yet. If it found a user, you'd see that echoed instead. But what I wanted to demonstrate is the fact that this runs asynchronously. So it will just run this code, immediately go to that line, and then whenever this is done, it will go back to it and then console log that, which is why hello comes first, and then the result from the database comes second. So don't worry, we're going to clean this up a little bit, and I'll show you how we can make this look a whole lot nicer in the next lecture.